Hello friends, in this session we'll be going through the installation of Kubernetes, which is also known as K8s. It is an open source system for automating deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications, basically for orchestration of containerized applications. So what we see here is four nodes basically. One is the master node and three worker nodes. So what I've done is I installed Ubuntu 22.04 on one of the nodes and made clone of those nodes in my ESXi hypervisor. So this, to begin with, we need to set the host names and set up our etc files. If you have DNS, you can use GNS. Otherwise, we can use the etc host entries to make sure that the nodes are able to communicate with each other utilizing just the host name, not the IP addresses. So going to our first node, which is the master node, we will set the host name to, I'll be utilizing my own domain name for that. Avoid providing password. It is better to sudo su minus so that you are the root user. Now I'll do the same thing for the worker nodes, set up the host names. This one will be worker one. After setting up the host names for all the nodes and the master node, we want to set up the etc host entries. If you have DNS, that will also work. But if you do not have a DNS server, then you can utilize these entries. So as you can see, I set up the respective IP addresses, and this has been done on all the four nodes. So whenever they want, they can communicate with each other utilizing just the host name, not the IP addresses. Next, we need to disable swap and also disable it permanently. So I'll be running this command on all the four nodes. Next command will remove the entry of SAP from etcfs tab so that after a reboot it will not start again. Now we need to load certain kernel modules. So we'll be using this command. I'll be providing this script as part of the attachments for this video. This is another module which needs to be loaded. We need to set certain kernel parameters in sysctl file. Something wrong in the syntax. Let me see. After running the sysctl minus system up, reload command, you may notice a connectivity loss and disconnection. Just reconnect your sessions because that command is touching the IPv4 IP tables. Basically, that leads to a reset of the network connectivity. Now we'll be installing containerd with this command and a bunch of other packages. This command we will enable the Docker repositories. Once this is done, we need to run app update so the newly configured repositories are loaded up and refreshed. Next command is to install containerd.io. We need to configure containerd with this command. Next command is doing a configuration change in the config.toml file. So for all these commands need to be run on all the nodes, but there will be certain commands which will be run on master node and only on worker nodes. Those will be coming up later. I'm starting containerd, restart will start it, and then we need to enable it so that with the reboot it gets loaded automatically. So systemctl enable containerd will enable it for reboots. Now we need to add the Kubernetes app repositories. We need to run app update after addition of any new repository. We'll be installing kubelet, kubeadm, and kubectl. Now we will mark these packages on hold so that they don't get created. Now we'll be initializing the Kubernetes cluster with kubeadm command, basically specifying the master node. This needs to be run only on the master node. Now, this after running this command, you will get the command to attach the worker nodes to the cluster, Kubernetes cluster. So as you can see, the command is given here, and this needs to be run on each of the worker nodes you want to join with the master node. So one command is to join the control plane, one command is to join the worker. So be careful only to run the worker command on the worker node. So I'm going to the worker node and running the join command. At the end of it, you will see that there is a command given kubectl get nodes. So this way we can take a look at what all nodes have been joined to the cluster. This may be because of IP tables. So let me see if IP tables is enabled or not. IP tables is not loaded. UFW is also disabled. The reason why we were seeing the unable to connect message is because we had not created the kube configs. So these three commands will create the Kubernetes config, admin config. And after that, if we run kubectl cluster info, you will get valid cluster info. I actually did not copy the command properly. So this is the cluster is running and it's available. Now let's see what is the status of the nodes. As you can see, the nodes are in not ready states, but they have joined the master node. So we must install container network interface or network add-on plugins like Calico, Flannel, and VNet. So we'll be adding Calico now with this command. Now if we check the kube system get pods, it will show the pods for Calico related networking available. Uh, Wait for all the status to go to running instead of pending. Now we can get nodes, kubectl get nodes to check the status of the nodes. Now I'll see all the three nodes are in ready state. Actually, all four nodes, including the master control plane node, is also in the ready state. This completes the installation of the K8 Kubernetes cluster. It is available, but now let's run a test To validate everything is configured correctly, we'll be installing a small pod with Nginx in it and verifying the web server with the net response OK uh, from the browser to validate that our entire Kubernetes K8 cluster is working properly. Test cluster, let's deploy Nginx image with two replicas on the cluster. App has been created. We'll check the deployment status. It's up to date and available. Now we need to expose the 80 port to outside world so that we can test. We will check the, we'll get the service and also we'll describe the service to check what external port mapping has been created for our web server port. As you can see, it's 32168 TCP. So we'll use curl 32168. As you can see, Nginx has successfully responded to the exported port 32168, which is mapped to the internal 80 port of our web server Nginx. This concludes the validation part also, and now you can go about deploying any applications which rely on K8 clusters. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.